Hello. Most of you know that I am playing along with Lisa from My Eclectic Life, and this last week she did a fold-out insert in her LapBook. And I haven't got mine decorated yet. It's just covered. I do have some ideas for some decorations I want to do to it, but for the moment, this is the finished project for today. Lisa has more books than I do and more pages, so I did add a few pockets and things that she hadn't added. It does make this section of the LapBook a little full, but that's all right. That's the whole point, is to have it be fun. So this actually is a fold out. Let me fold it. Let's see. Let's fold it this way. It pulls out like so. And this is an envelope and a pocket. And this one is a pocket, and I did put small gussets in the side of this one so that it had a little more room to put things into, because it was a little full. It was a little tight in there. There is a spine area there so that when this fills up and this fills up, there's room. Then this one is another little envelope, which is also a pocket. And then if you fold it out the other direction, it is like Lisa's. What's catching? Okay. There we go. It has 4 pockets along here. But then Lisa glued hers down. This piece she glued down, and I put a big gusset in it so that it is an expandable pocket. I did not put a type of closure on it. I may live to regret that, but at the moment I think it's fine and I'm happy with it. So that is what I am going to do today, and let's get busy and I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so first off, Lisa used a smaller regular size file folder. I chose deeper pockets for mine. My book is actually a little smaller than Lisa's book, so I decided deeper pockets might be a better choice. It does mean they're a little harder to get into later down the road. I'll show you that I only cut one side. I only glued one side. Sorry, can't talk today. I often use my cutting board as a scoreboard. There is a groove that the blade runs through, and if you're careful, you can get a rough line for folding, and that's what I just did there. And now I'm going to fold up the bottom, and this is where my pockets will be. This is a file folder. The file folder weight cardstock is just a little heavier than most cardstocks. So now, honestly, this takes a while to think about. You have to think about it. I wanted it to be just about 1/4 of an inch smaller all the way around than my book. So measure your book and then subtract about 1/2 inch each direction. And I wanted the flap of the file folder to stick out there on the left-hand side, as you saw. So I'm just kind of looking at my ruler, thinking about what I want, and rather than a pencil mark, I just made a dent with my bone folder. I did move the book because underneath my craft mat there, I have a pad of paper, so a lot of times if I push with the bone folder, it gives me a mark. The other thing is I used the lines on the ruler so that it was straight. I'm just folding. I realized I couldn't fold both pieces at the same time and get a good fold. It's about having a good fold so that you can find the fold later. And I'll tell you that you're going to get a little bored in a few minutes because I have to think. think. But this is what it is right now. So now I'm going to make another line so that that top piece folds back. And each time I'm just creasing it with the bone folder just so that I have a little bit of something to fold along the line. I do like that gridded ruler. It's very much like a quilting ruler, even though it's actually a centering ruler from Fiskars. I use that centering ruler a lot, and partially because it's gridded and it has grids across it. Okay, because we're folding those pockets, having that extra in there, it was not letting it fold good, so I took little tiny V's out in those areas, just little V's of cardboard. And I did find that that has to be adjusted a little bit. It's still tight, see? Right there, still a little too tight. So I went back and I took a little more out. And I'm just barely shaving it. So it's one of those things that don't overdo it right in the beginning. Now I hadn't taken the middle out yet because I hadn't quite finished up what I was doing there. That center fold. And I'm thinking, and I'm choosing whether or not my envelopes are going to fit. These are some coin envelopes, basically. So they're top loading. That one barely fits, but it fit. The other one I could cut off, but I decided to put it on the front because it fits and it looks cute there. So that's where that one's going to go. That leaves an empty page. Oh, we can't have an empty page. This is when I decided that if I start putting all kinds of stuff in that fold out area, it's going to get bulky. So there's already lines in the file folder. If you look at the bottom of the file folder, there's already a couple of fold lines. It's just the way they're designed. So I choose the next line over, which is roughly 1/4 of an inch, and I fold along that line, giving me a little tiny spine in there. Or space for bulk. Now I'm going to hold it up endwise. See there? It gives me just that little 1/4 of an inch bulk in there. And my little envelope still fits. And the other envelope fits. Everything's fitting on the page good. I have a blank space. So I decide that what I'm going to do is create a pocket right there. Well, the piece I had cut off was just not quite deep enough. So I decided to cut another piece. And I have a file folder that I boo-booed on earlier. Somehow or another, even though I measured, I cut wrong. So no big deal. I'll use it down the road. For some reason, cutting was not
not happening that day. It just wasn't. My cutter is just arguing with me. I finally grabbed the scissors and cut it off. I think it was the bulk of the file folder that was on the other side. So now I have to measure. I have to decide how deep I'm going to make that pocket. And I want it pretty much the whole page. And I'm not giving you measurements because honestly, you have to decide based on the book covers that you use. I used two book covers that were the same height, but they're not the same thickness on the spines. Lisa's got three books that are the same height, and a couple are smaller and a couple are bigger. Your books are going to be different than mine, so I can't really give you measurements. You have to judge the measurements on your own. I mean, a bigger book, I probably wouldn't have cut any of the file folder off. I do like those legal size file folders though, because the legal size file folder is just enough bigger that it often gives me uh, a little bit of leeway for whatever I'm doing. Now, I ended up with that little 1/4 inch spine, and knowing that I'm going to put those things down as pockets and making it fold nice, I took that little piece out of there. So now I have my actual base, and I have all the parts and pieces that is going to go together. I have the two envelopes, I have the little pocket piece, I have the pockets that are still attached to the file folder. Everything is all measured out and the pieces are cut. Now I've got to decorate it all. And I'm going to start and then stop the video here in just a minute because frankly, you've watched me do this before. I'm using 4 different book pages because of the color of them. I'm putting them all in right side up, and they're all sort of cut or torn. They're all torn. I took the edges of the pages off. It's just like the inside cover of my book, of my covers. I wanted it to be kind of newspaper paper looking, so I did not turn them. I did not tear them multiple sizes. It kind of looks like columns in a newspaper. And the fact that the 4 different books have different age on them makes them look, I don't know, it gives it a mosaic type look in some respects. I really am liking how this collage type thing looks. I did try on the places where it bent to use the book pages that were a little less brittle. I have 2 books that are very brittle, the darker 2, um, and then they're just very brittle, and I knew that they would tear on the edges. So now I only did the top part. I did not do the bottom part of the file folder yet. First off, you don't need to do the inside of the pockets. You only need to do the outside. So I'll do some more of that later. I did not want the Mod Podge to seal my envelopes together. So I started to just tuck that in a little bit so that it wouldn't get on the flap, and then realized I probably better stick it all the way down inside so that the Mod Podge does not soak through those envelopes. I didn't have any problems with that, but I just was preparing it, and that's just wax paper. So see, I've only stuck it in a little bit, and then I realized, uh-oh, Better put that all the way down. And I'm going to treat the envelopes, the front side. I did not do the back sides. I didn't see any need to. They're going to be stuck down, so. And I just treated them like they were the file folder or any other base. I did go up over the edge. We'll see in just a minute. Oops, not wide enough. There we go. Now see, I went up over the edge and I didn't worry about it. It's on the wax paper. I can trim that off a little bit later, and that's what happens. There, this piece is wider, so. And this is the piece for the one pocket. One of the things you have to think about when you go to do this, and that's what I was showing you, is that you need to think how it's in your book. Because normally the pocket would load at the top and this pocket loads on the side. So since all of my book pages are with the writing where you can read it or right side up, I needed to make sure I put it in there right. Okay, so parts of it was dry, and I went in and I trimmed off all the edges. And you saw I just went over the edges. It just going over the edges is so much easier, trimming it off later. Just make sure on your envelopes especially that you do not trim the edge of the envelope, making it not an envelope anymore. And there you saw me trim out the top edge. Okay, and we're going to trim all around the edges. Sorry, I cut out a bunch of this. I had 3 hours of video to get down to this 45 minutes. I know this seems like a long video, but I have trimmed, I have speeded up. I hope that it's not so long that it bores you to tears. Now here we have to think about what is going to show. Okay, so we got all those pieces. And it's all going to go in my book like so. I need to do a little bit on that edge. And these, I'm just making an arrow so that I know which way my words need to go, seeing how my design is all one way up. And when I turned it over like that, now my words need to go upside down on the little flaps at the bottom. And what ends up happening is I end up doing the top half, and then letting it dry just a little bit before I turn it around and do the bottom half, because that's a big piece to have on my desk, and I didn't want that messy stuff all over everywhere accidentally, so I really just did from the fold line up. Goodness, I thought I had cut more of this out than I seem to have. Sorry guys, I guess you can speed ahead a little bit if you'd like. Now, on those folded areas, there again, oh, well, we did speed ahead, so I got it all covered. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to edge all these pieces. This is also, one of those boring tasks that take a while. And that envelope was just too white, and I don't have a clue why, but my timber brown is green. So, it just is. But I'm going to edge the edge of the envelopes. And you see I put paper on the top fold of the envelopes. I'm going to edge the pocket. I'm going to edge the whole thing. Everywhere. I edged everywhere, all of the little places. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to make the closures for the envelopes. And that is just a heavy craft cardstock. And that was my 1/2-inch circle punch. And I suppose I could use it just single, but well, obviously my glue doesn't want to come out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a thicker little circle by putting 3 layers of the craft cardstock together. And I need 4 of those. So in a minute, you'll see me, I have to punch out a bunch more little circles. I wasn't sure whether 2 was going to be it or whether 4 was going to be it. So I end up having to go through and punch out a bunch more little circles. And like I said, that's a 1/2-inch punch. And I wanted a few extra because in a few minutes you'll see I don't like the brads on the back. I like to cover those up. So now the cover pieces for the brads can be I just used a single layer. So I had 4 little pieces that were 3 layers thick. There's my little pokey tool. And I'm just going to eyeball it and gently put a hole in the middle of each one of the 4 triple layer little circles. And of course, we must put a little bit of distressing on the edges. We want to make it look nice and grungy. I just wish I could edge all these things that fast. And now I've got some tiny little brads. And I end up deciding to use they're sort of an antique brass kind of color, kind of brown. And I just prep all my little circles with 1 brad each. That keeps the brads from running across the table as part of it. Tiny hole, stick a brad in. Now I've got that little thing on the back, and this is where I take my single layer of cardstock circle and put it on there. It also helps the brad to keep from pulling through. And I want it 1 inch or so apart. And you notice how I measured very, very carefully, right? I just eyeball it. Now you cannot see down inside that envelope, but I had trouble getting that brad to open. It's like, okay, so it doesn't come out. And again, I don't like sticking my hand down in the envelope and having it bite me. So I just put that little cover over top of the brad. And that's some wax linen. It's a nice heavy wax linen. That is what I'm going to tie anything with. And I put it around the top one and I just tie it once. It's going to stay. And there we go. And I did decide I wanted the two pieces tied together, so I tied them together. And I'm going to do this the second time. Sorry that's off camera, guys. Another piece of wax linen. That one was a little bit long. I ended up cutting it off. Um, one of the problems I had was that makeup sponge was the file folder just sort of disintegrated it. Every time I was edging something, it just the sponge just kept coming apart. And it's not that old of a makeup sponge, so I don't know, but I decided that that little edge needed a little bit of color on it. I use a mixture of tape and glue when I'm doing pockets. I like the tape because it holds it instantly, and therefore the glue has a chance to set, but you don't want tape on the very edge of your pockets without glue, because then the things you stick in your pocket will catch on the tape. So I've got one envelope in. Now I'm going to put the other envelope in. I always have to tell myself which edges, which corners are where the tape goes. And that's just 1/8 inch tape. I really love that 1/8 inch tape for this particular type of purpose. It just holds things in place while the glue sets. And now I'm going to put the pocket in. Here's where I decide that, that pocket might be a little snug. And I might have decided it was too long. Oh, no, that's where I decided I wanted a thumb spot. So I did measure the center of that one just because I wanted it to be pretty centered. That's a long space for me to be able to measure. Oh, another thing, I'm using StazOn ink here. With all that Mod Podge on there, the Distress ink with its water base is not going to stay on that Mod Podged area very well. So I chose to use a permanent ink. Now I need, roughly an inch wide piece. And I decide, okay, my cutter's not cutting real well. We better just cut one piece. So I pull up about an inch wide piece. I think this piece ended up being a little bit wider than an inch, but it worked perfectly for what it wanted. That little piece I cut off at the bottom was where the folds are in the file folder, and I didn't want that area. And then I did not go clear up to the top edge because I have rounded the top edges. And I just took that roughly inch wide piece and folded it in half. And it's going to go on there like that. And of course, it's very white, and so I end up inking it up a little bit, taking away the real white look of it. And again, I'm going to use my tape glue combination. I realize I've put it on the wrong edge. You want the tape on the outside edge, not the inside close to the thing. So the tape goes on the folded edge. And I peeled one side because I wanted the ones on the pocket to be glued on before I started sticking everything to the book, to the fold out. I realize I've inked the wrong spot. I've inked the bottom of it instead of the top of it. It's not a big deal. You can go back with ink later. And I glued those little spots down. It's not really going to show. And now I'm running tape along the bottom. You can kind of see how the gusset, it's pinched at the bottom, but it's open at the top so that you can just get a little more, have a little more room to stick your hands in there. I do like that art glitter glue. Lisa has used it for ages and she loves it. And I like the Tombow mono glue and had been using it and was just happy with it. But that art glitter glue is really, really nice. I really like how tiny it comes out. It's nice and strong. I will be getting more. Now I have to deal with my little pockets for all of that. And so I'm going to be gluing. I ended up only gluing down one side of each pocket. I sort of made the decision that they were kind of small pockets for getting your hands into. And I had made them deep enough, and that, is kind of an issue. If you get them too deep and something slides down in there, then you can't get your hands into them. So they are more like tucks instead of pockets. I just decided that that would make me happier as far as putting stuff into them. So they're really more like tucks than pockets. Burnishing that double-sided tape really helps to get the paper off of it. If you burnish it down real well, for some reason it just, ta-da! Our little flip is all finished, and now we just have to figure out how to get it stuck in our book. This is where I decided that I wanted a hinge or a gusset a gusset. And so I want a nice big gusset. And I'm just using another straight edge to cut straight. It's there. And I need one side of my file folder has that flappy piece that comes out. So I need a taller piece on that side. And then a slightly shorter piece on the other side. So the two pieces are slightly different in size. And I did not make my pieces go clear up to the edge because I wanted to gusset. I didn't want it to be so tight that it didn't fit. See, there are the tabs. It pushes out over the top. And I folded it in half. And that's roughly a 2-inch piece. And then I folded it back. And it's really hard for me to fold. It's pretty stiff. Folding it and showing it to you is a little bit difficult. Then turn it over and fold the other side back. And you end up with an M or a W. It's like a fan. See there's a little fan. And then we're going to fold the other piece exactly the same way. And you want to fold it pretty accurate. So I'm working to get the edges really nice and straight. Okay, so we got that edged all nice and straight. And now I'm going to put ink all over. Okay, now sometimes we don't think very well, but I made a boo-boo because I've inked the wrong piece, the wrong side. When it all boils down, I've inked the wrong side. So it's all right. I can go back in later and ink it, but this this ink is all down inside my pocket. You'll see. All at work for nothing. All right, so now we want the top edge to be open, but the bottom edge to be sealed together. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of tape and a little bit of glue, forgot to burnish, in that little fold. And I'm just holding them good for a minute. There's a lot of pull on that at the beginning, so you want your glue to set just a minute. Now, here's what happens is I realize all of a sudden that I'm putting it in there wrong. See here, I'm thinking, I've done it wrong, and realize, oops. So I've inked it the wrong direction. You want the folded edge along the folded edge of your pocket. You want the cut edge inside your pocket. So I just go back in and I ink that little gully in there. At least I realized it before I glued it down. Okay, so now I realize I need, oh, must have decided it wasn't enough. I realize I need to glue the whole bottom edge together. The whole part of the fan should be stuck. So I go in and I'm going to stick that whole bottom piece, all of the little folded pieces at the bottom of the fan. Okay, now we got it right. The fold goes along the outside edge. And again, I'm only working with the pieces that are on the actual pullout right now. I'm only putting tape on there. Only going to put glue on there till I get ready to actually stick it in the book. Yay! I decided, oops, too white. Gotta have a little bit of ink on there. We want it kind of grungy. Okay, so now I'm going to do my same thing. I'm putting tape all along the edge. And I'm going to go all the way across the bottom edge. There was a little extra spot there. I decided I needed a little extra piece of tape. And of course the glue. Now across the bottom of this is a fairly heavy thing. So I put a couple of rows of glue across the bottom. And, oops, be careful. Make sure you put it in right side up. And in it goes. And you want to push it down really well. Everything's working. Yay! Okay, guys, I'm going to read you a quote from our 1001 Ways to Creativity, and then I have got to clean up this mess. I have made a big old mess to do this, and I am sorry that these videos get a little long, but that's kind of the way they do when you're working on a big project. So, let's see here. Lots of people work hard and play hard, but only creative people get to do both at the same time. I do like that one. Okay, guys, go have fun. Make some art. Bye-bye.